What's up? What's up? What's up? This video, I want to discuss dealing with cis men. So, whether it's friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, romantic partnerships, down to sex partners and beyond. And my thing is, and honestly, you could say this is intersex trans men as well. I feel like a lot of us, and I'm including myself in this, we need to work on our communication skills, because you'll hear a lot of men talk about how nobody's there for us, and yet in the same breath, are you there for anybody? And what I mean by that is, you will have people showing up for you, going above and beyond the call of duty to support you, to listen to you, to care for you, checking in on you. But yet, are you doing the same thing? I feel like a lot of men have issues with reciprocating energy when it's a positive outlook. Notice I said reciprocating energy when it's a positive outlook, because men don't have a problem with taking and treating you like trash and using you and playing all these mind games. But then when somebody is showcasing that they're there for them, that they love them, that they care about them, all of a sudden, a lot of men treat that person either like they don't exist. You're either ignoring them, breadcrumbing them, using them essentially. But then you're chasing after people who don't pay you any mind. And it isn't just men, but I'm speaking specifically to men. Okay? You can't sit up and complain that nobody's there for you, but yet when people are there for you, you act like they don't matter or they don't exist. I feel like a lot of us complain about stuff, but we're not looking at our own behaviors. Arguably, a lot of men push people away. So all of this making it seem like nobody's there for you, look in the mirror at how you're treating the people that are there for you. I mean, it's ridiculous. Y'all will go all the way out for somebody that's treating you like garbage, but then turn around and treat the person that's there for you consistently like shit on a stick. And eventually that person who's being treated like shit on a stick, sooner or later is going to get the message that you don't care. And they're going to move on. And then what a lot of men like to do is get on social media or with their boys and trash talk that other person for leaving after you played with their emotions and feelings and time for God knows how long. You can't bash them. You have to take accountability for your actions. I feel like a lot of us have dismissive, avoidant attachment styles. So it's like we want love, we want that affection, we want that intimacy, but we're also afraid of being abandoned and also afraid of being hurt. So we allow our fears to get in the way of potentially really good relationships because we're not willing to be open and vulnerable with the other person. Or we're only willing to be open and vulnerable with that other person to a certain limit. And then once we hit that limit, we start self-sabotaging entire relationships. I'm just going to be honest. Like, you'll start doing things to essentially cause that other person to leave you. And some of this is conscious and some of this is unconscious. But, another thing, I feel like a lot of us men need to go to therapy and stop sitting up here trying to make our significant others into therapists and counselors, because that's not their job. You have to be willing to do the inner work yourself. A lot of the issues that we have would be solved by simply going to therapy and counseling and being consistent with it. A lot of us are bringing in past trauma from past relationships, as well as bringing our childhood trauma into our new relationships. And you're basically trying to make the new person responsible for what the old person or what happened in your childhood. That's not their responsibility. They're not the ones that lied to you. They're not the ones that cheated on you. They're not the ones that used you. A lot of dudes sit up and talk about gold diggers when they themselves don't even have gold for anybody to be digging. Like, let's just be real. A lot of us are not. I've said this before. Your average working person in the USA makes under $100,000 a year. Around 13 to 15% of the working population makes over $100,000 a year. So that leaves 85 to 87% of the working population making under six figures a year. So when you hear men, and it's mostly cis men, but I'm just going to say men, because intersex men do it, trans men do it. When you hear men talking about, oh, they're just out here for my money, what money? Most of us are not making that type of money where we would be able to be taken advantage of by a gold digger. So I'm really confused as to why is that always our go-to? Oh, they're just here for my money. You don't have any money for anybody to be there for half the time. So what are you talking about? And also, if you're in a gay community and you're in a gay relationship, this is, on my personal opinion, if we're two men, both of us should be bringing our own money to the table. I don't really get why we're trying to have cis heteronormative setups when we're not heterosexual. This is not a man and a woman. This is two men. So I don't really get the whole thinking that you're going to be taken care of like you are in a traditional cis heteronormative relationship and you are the woman. That's not what's happening here. I also don't understand why so many of us have so many issues around actually dating. And I think this is where some, in my opinion, some of the cis heteronormative ways of doing things has some positives. I want to give a shout out to Say So TV, because Say So TV has also addressed this topic. But some of those cis heteronormative ways of dating have a lot of pros. And one of those ways is too many of us rush into having sex instead of actually getting to know that person. You're not going on dates. This is another reason why it seems like a lot of the things that we do is extremely boring, because it's the same mundane thing. We're on the hookup apps. A lot of us feel dehumanized, fetishized, and sexualized. It goes from, oh, you're cute, blah, 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 blah. You trying to smoke, blah, 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 blah. You want to link, blah, 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 blah. You finally link. You have sex, blah, 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 blah. And then instead of there being a progression to something more, it ends up basically being a stalemate. It stays in the same situation. Years have passed and y'all are doing the same thing. You're not going on dates. You're not even moving out of the talking stage. You're stuck in talking stages and situationships, friends with benefits. And a lot of that boils down to us having dismissive, avoidant attachment styles. So many of us are afraid of having a committed relationship because of our childhood. And this goes back again. Your partner is not your deadbeat dad. Your partner is not your toxic mom. So treating them like they're the ones that abandoned you when they didn't do anything to you, or treating them like they're the ones that pretty much gave you the low self-esteem. Because let's be honest, a lot of us are coming from toxic, dysfunctional households. And I said this before, a lot of these toxic mothers are exactly why a lot of these men end up being misogynistic. And also why they don't know how to convey their emotions, don't really know how to open up, don't know how to really communicate, because it wasn't really allowed to begin with when you were a child. And I get it. I had, a similar situation. However, at 32 damn near, I can't keep using what happened to me 30 years ago or 25 years ago or 20 years ago as an excuse for why at nearly 32, I'm still showing up as that 8-year-old kid that was victimized and harmed. We really have to work on that, because arguably a lot of us in the gay community are never going to have healthy relationships if we continue with this frame of thought. Another thing, all of the drinking and the alcoholism that takes place in our community and the drug usage, I'm just going to call a thing a thing. A lot of us are functioning alcoholics. A lot of us are drug addicts. A lot of us are sex addicts. We're literally using sex, drugs, and alcohol as coping mechanisms for deeper problems. And it's sad because so many of us are functioning addicts, and that's going to take a toll on your physical and mental health. Okay? You can't just drink all of your problems away. And then I'm getting to the point for myself, looking at my own drinking habits, like, what is really going on here? Like, what are we even doing? Like, we're not celebrating anything. It just happens to be Friday night and we're at the bar. And then it's getting to the point where it's tiring and exhausting because that's all we're doing. Sex, drinking, smoking, and then some people are doing harder, heavier drugs than others, and vice versa. And it's like, we need to have healthier coping mechanisms, such as going to the park, riding a bike, going to the gym, going to therapy, getting into counseling, journaling. There are so many other ways to deal with trauma, and we don't have to always use vices that are negatively impacting us. Because, like, for a lot of people, they don't have a control. You know what I'm saying? They crack open one beer, next thing you know, they've already went through a 12-pack or a 24-pack. You know, or they start smoking one joint, and now they done went through a whole eighth in just that one few hours. You know what I'm saying? Or you got people who are addicted to sex to the point where they're putting themselves in very risky situations, whether that's to potentially become sexually assaulted and abused, or catching STIs, STDs, or unwanted pregnancies, or getting someone pregnant, etc., because you don't have control over that addiction. You're acting on impulse. You know what I'm saying? At that point, and it's impulse, and then depending on the situation, it's a chemical addiction. You are like, your body is telling you that you need this and you need it now. And we're not talking about J.G. Wentworth, okay? And I'm not even trying to be funny with that, but like, seriously, like, I see a lot of us in the way we handle things, and also looking at how I'm handling things, and I'm just like, this is not positive at all. We are essentially creating early graves if we don't get it together. And when you look at a lot of people in our community, that's what's happening. You know, people are dying from alcoholism. People are dying because they're addicted to various drugs. You know, people are unable to have healthy, committed, loving relationships, or even have decent friendships because the boundaries are so blurred. So many of us are hooking up with our friends because we have sex addictions. It just needs to be said. Your entire life should not revolve around having sex and drinking and doing drugs. Okay? There is so much more to life than all three of those things. And a lot of us, you would never know that because that's how our lives are revolving. It's revolving around getting your next nut and getting your next high and being lit 24/7. Meanwhile, like, what are your personal goals? What are things that you want to work on? What are things that you want to achieve and accomplish? Do you even have real friendships? Because a lot of these friendships also are very surface level. Like, again, these are people that you only see when you're trying to get lit and turn up. These are not people that you call when you're having a bad day, or you need reassurance, or you just need to talk to somebody. You're not calling them for that. These are people that you typically only see when it's time to turn up and get lit. And you got to start asking yourself, are these good people to have in your life? Because honestly, if you're trying to be sober, realistically speaking, you need to hang out with people that are also sober. I'm learning that for myself. I'm trying to wean myself and like significantly reduce the amount of weed I do and the amount of alcohol and liquor that I partake in. Because I'm noticing for myself, like, it's extremely depressing. And let's just keep it a buck. Alcohol is a depressant. So if you're depressed, you probably don't need to be doing alcohol. And outside of it being a depressant, it's a literal poison. It's not something that's good for our body. I don't care how we try to twist and turn it. You're putting poison in your body. And for a lot of us, it's excessively. You're getting hangovers, you're getting headaches, you're gaining weight that you're not trying to gain, I mean, when you look at a lot of men, they're walking around here with pot bellies because they drink too much. Okay, it just needs to be said. Like, why are you a cis man looking like you're pregnant? I'm just keeping it real. You know, a lot of us need to start paying attention to how these things are destroying our bodies, okay? It's destroying relationships as well, all right? Also, back to the sobriety. You really have to start hanging out with people who are sober, because you're not going to be influenced to do drinking and drugs if you're hanging out with people who don't do those things. And that also means that you might have to cut back on hanging out with people that you were calling your friend. And notice I'm saying calling, because you gotta ask yourself, if you've told people, hey, I'm, wanting to work on my drinking, I want to reduce it, or I want to reduce my weed usage, and they're not supportive, they're not encouraging you to continue to be sober, and in fact, they're doing everything in their power to motivate you to continue drinking and smoking, then honestly, is that really a friend? I'm just being honest. Like, it comes a time where we really have to start examining why we hang out with who we hang out with, and why do we continue to participate in toxic behaviors that are not serving our best interests. And I'm not saying this to say you're better than them. I'm not saying this for you to look down on them. But I am saying this to say, hey, maybe it's time to re-examine and reevaluate why you have people in your life. Because arguably, there are a lot of people who really are basically fillers, right? Like, they're fillers. They're people that you hang out with from time to time. They're not actually genuine friends that add value to your life. You know what I'm saying? And again, if you're really working towards sobriety, it gets to a point where you have to really start paying attention to things. You have to be conscientious. And I feel like a lot of men, they're going through a lot. A lot of us are going through a lot, whether you're a cis male, an intersex male, or a trans male. A lot of us are alone. A lot of us are single, which is hilarious too, because you'll hear all these cishet males complain about women. Oh, you're all single, blah, blah, blah. But you're single too. So what are you talking about? And like I said, everybody claims that, it's F-hoes get money when you're not getting neither. So at some point, I think a lot of us need to kind of grow up and actually be honest with ourselves and be honest about how we feel. Because arguably, we're not going to feel better if we continue to try to hide from our emotions and feelings. And a lot of us, that's what we're doing. We're hiding from our emotions and feelings, and then getting upset that our needs aren't being met, but we're not vocalizing what our needs are. We're not honest about what we want. And in some cases, you don't even know what you want. So I just wanted to make that video because I get it. You know what I'm saying? I'm in a current phase in my life where I'm literally re-examining a lot of things, because I'm tired of feeling how I feel, personally. So trust me, I understand. I get it. And this video is more so an open conversation, if you will. Hopefully it gets the conversation started, that we as men have these discussions, because at the end of the day, many of us are suffering alone. And a lot of people don't feel like they have options. They don't have resources. They don't have help. They don't have a community. And that's sad, because you shouldn't have to be alone. But like I said earlier, a lot of us have self-sabotaging behaviors that make it where we end up being alone. And until you focus on fixing that, and a lot of that is going to be through therapy and counseling, until you do that, you're going to basically relive a pattern of the same experiences, the same relationships, the same problems. It's up to you.